Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, I think these Reddit videos can be pretty fun
Americans have
and amusing. I've seen a few of these types of videos, but the other way around, like Europeans reacting to things about America. But this is the opposite, so should be interesting. Preemptive like, Updoot Studios, Fuel. What problems are you glad that America doesn't have but Europe does? Okay.
What about Europe makes you go thank goodness we don't have that here? Being a second-gen Ukrainian, one thing America has that Ukraine doesn't is a societal norm to not drive or park on sidewalks. I was surprised by that when I drove to Ukraine the first time. I'm Canadian but was living in Czech Republic for a few years. At the border there is a visible amount of mafia, and then people are driving onto the sidewalks when traffic is slow, or just parking their cars in the middle of the street and then forcing cars to drive on the sidewalks. This was Lviv in 2009-ish.
I'm going to be asking this question a lot of the time, but is this true? Do you guys from these places or other places in Europe, do you see this as a common problem? Interesting.
Drive on the sidewalks. This was Lviv in 2009-ish. As a disabled person, all the goddamn stairs. I'd love to visit France, but the stairs. Come to Iceland. Stairs are not a problem here,
Interesting.
As someone who's been to Greece quite a few times, Greek drivers. Holy.
Let me just say it again, and so I don't have to keep repeating it. I would love for any of the things that were spoken here in the video, if any of you agree or disagree. Are they more broad across Europe? Are they true in the countries being talked about? So I can just get that out of the way and not have to repeat myself.
Crap, they do what someone who's been to Greece quite a few times, Greek drivers. Holy crap, they do whatever they feel like on the road whenever they feel like it.
I've seen videos of roads in India. Holy crap. Chaotic. Like, they don't seem to have, like, intersection rules. And I heard there's this rule in India, maybe it's false, that if a cow lays down in the road, then traffic is not allowed to go forward, and you're not allowed to move the cow until it does it by itself. I'm wondering if that's
controversial.
True.
Oh yeah, thanks for the reminder. I am really glad that almost everything is open on Sundays. I lived in Germany for a few months and didn't plan groceries right that first weekend. Grocery store closed. I didn't have anything to eat, so I walked into town to find a restaurant, and the only thing open was a Pizza Hut. I don't even like Pizza Hut when I'm in the US. Tip: in Germany, gas stations are open on Sundays and they almost always have a mini grocery shopping area. Things closing really early. I was at a coffee shop doing homework when studying abroad. By around 3 they came up to me and kicked me out since they were about to close. In the US, coffee shops are often open pretty late for people to study, so that was weird, go me. Other than that, I think living in Europe would be wonderful. Meanwhile, the Greek Cypriot girls at my English uni were complaining that the coffee shops shut at latest around 10 p.m. They were wanting to go for coffees at midnight and later, like they apparently did at home.
I think with more chain restaurants and fast food, something like Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, they're going to be open more. But like, there's a bagel shop near me that obviously sells coffee and bagels and bagel sandwiches, and they close at around 3 p.m., maybe 2 p.m., or maybe earlier on some days. And I think it's really a business choice, in that it's just doesn't make business sense, profit sense to stay open later than that. Though there are many times where I'd love a bagel sandwich past that.
It's been years since I've been to Europe. Heck, it's been before places here started banning smoking. But I do remember a ton of smoking. Varies quite a bit by where you go. It's not so bad in most Nordic countries, but it is in most Mediterranean countries, as far as my experience goes.
I've been to Europe twice in my life, and absolutely is something that I notice, and that I didn't realize how Americans smoked so less cigarettes than Europe. It's kind of like I kind of compare it to like the obesity, which is definitely a thing. I noticed how people were just so normal and fit looking in Europe, and going back, I'm like, holy crap, we're really fat. Just same thing with cigarettes. Like it's hard not to notice just how many people in Europe smoke cigarettes.
The price of gas, or for my buddies across the pond, petrol. Piers Morgan. Please don't let him come back here. Well, we don't want him either. A lot of places in Europe don't have air conditioning, even though they could really use it. The London Underground could really use some kind of cooling, but I guess they'd have to figure out how to get rid of the excess heat, and Frick knows how to do that.
Definitely heard a lot about that.
Paying ridiculously amount of money for a driver's license.
Has that changed in recent years, guys? Do more places in Europe have, and houses and whatnot, have air conditioning, or no? Maybe even like just like the window air conditioners that you can put in. Paying for driver's license.
Here we give them out in fricking cereal boxes.
Oh. You know, I meant to say this in another video, and I'm upset I didn't. You know, a good thing that I can see about having more bike and walking friendly cities and just areas in Europe as opposed to the USA is that although you might not get your driver's license as early as we do, and maybe you never get it, I don't know, it makes it so that, because at first I thought, you know, maybe a lot of Americans at a younger age get more freedom to travel to certain places. But then I realized it's probably the opposite, because you can travel much more easily when you're even under 16 on better public transportation. And so therefore, actually in Europe, you probably get to see a lot more and be more independent than over here. I meant to say that in another video.
Canadian here. I love Europe, but the population density and crowds there is enough to drive me crazy. Don't get me wrong, there are places that are less populous, but there is nothing like going out into Canadian country and not seeing another soul. When I was young, I met an exchange student from Austria who commented that one of the things she loved about Canada is that you can drive for hours and still not be in another city. One of the things I had loved about visiting Europe was that there always seemed to be another interesting town just down the road. A grass is greener sort of thing, yeah. I guess. Their level of smoking. It seems North America is where
the grass is greener is right, because I would see that as not really a positive that you have to drive so far just to go to another town. So level of smoking, right?
Head on anti-smoking. The lack of accessibility for people with physical disabilities.
This is already said as well.
I lived in the UK, specifically London, for a few months, and I'd always think, how is a person with a wheelchair supposed to get through this city? Canadian here. Something that I never understood was that shops and other places just get closed.
I love how it's Americans don't have that, but Europe does, but there are so many Canadian comments.
So done early. Think that
we're obviously very similar countries, so not surprising.
Supposed to get through this city. Canadian here. Something that I never understood was that shops and other places just get closed so darn early. Like you are sitting there reading in the light of day and the owner comes and says it is closed. Some days everything is either closed or will close super early for no apparent reason. In America, things stay open till heck freezes over.
Especially in places like New York. But the further you go away from big cities, I'm sure this is is more of a problem, I'd say. And although there are, you know, repeated concerns in the video, it does emphasize the more you see people talk about them, the greater the problem they see is.
So in America, things stay open till heck freezes over. The number of times I've had to leave my car frozen overnight at work during a blizzard. Crappy butt dryers. American living in Europe. Pickpockets.
What? Crappy butt dryers. I was going to say a bidet, but that's the opposite of a butt dryer.
Butt dryers. American living in Europe.
I really wish they would have expanded on this.
Pickpockets. When my grandparents went to London with my aunt, uncle, and cousins, the first thing that happened was my grandfather got pickpocketed. He had to get a new ID, passport, credit card, everything, at the age of 89.
Ugh. What's the thing with stealing someone's phone or wallet? Phone, I would say, might be even worse. not just because of its expense. You might have a lot of money in your wallet, but you have to it's not just the monetary value of the wallet itself and whatever money you might lose, but you have to go now spend weeks or a month or go, I need my credit cards redone. I need to cancel my credit cards. I need to renew my license. I have to get another license. And the thing with a phone that I can't believe people, I saw a video of people on like a moped, I don't know what city it was, that like stole two people's phones right in a row, went on the sidewalk and just yoinked it. Is that, it made me so upset. Not just because of the price of the phone, but you could have had like your baby pictures on that phone and a phone is such a personal thing. You have so many things on it that so many notes you've created and so many, a calendar that you filled out and texts you have with people that might not be around anymore. It's such disgusting.
It sucked. No screens in Windows. You don't realize how much you miss them until there's a pigeon in your flat. Canadian here. From my few trips to
I thought he would have said bugs, a pigeon.
Europe, only France and Greece. I'm happy that we don't have the high smoker non-smoker ratio, the sheer density of population in some places, the water scarcity, so many tourists. I know tourism is good for now.
This is my one personal complaint about Europe. It's my personal complaint. It might just be personal to me. It came to water, right? The water scarcity, but like Evian, it sounds like such a stupid thing to complain about, but I didn't like the water in Europe. I didn't like the taste. Maybe it's just because it was new to me, but I couldn't stand that. I hated that. But maybe that's just a personal taste I have, and so it could only apply to me.
National economy, but I'd go crazy if I couldn't access my favorite spots because there are always tourists in the way.
And the thing that is the rebuttal against this is, well, they give so much to your economy. You don't want that. Well, you can't just base everything on money that you take in. If a country doesn't want tourists in it, you can't just assume that they don't realize the amount of money they wouldn't make if they had the tourists. Well, if they think you're ruining the place that they live, that's more important than the money that is brought in by tourism. And so I think countries within Europe have obviously the right to want to lower the level of tourism.
That warm of a weather. You might like Norway. Less crowded. Smoking is on a decline. Plenty clean water. No summer. Not as warm summer I meant. We're basically miniature Canada, I guess.
I just couldn't, when it comes to Norway, Europe is already so far up north compared to America that, especially when you go to Northern Europe, I couldn't deal with the amount of super short days, especially when you get into the winter. And the really long winters, I feel like I'd get depressed.
Paying to use a toilet.
Yeah.
I was once in a Dutch train station practically dancing. I had to pee so bad, rummaging through my purse looking for the right coin, when a nice lady came up and said, "It takes this one," put the coin in and opened the door for me.
What a nice
the
lady.
lack of good Mexican food.
I've seen this on other videos like this, and I've always wondered, what if I have to go? You're just saying, well, go poop on the sidewalk. It's like, what?
And opened the door for me. The lack of good Mexican food. I went to a Mexican restaurant in Slovenia and they brought out Doritos with salsa to our table. How hard it is to get me.
You know what's strange? I remember being in Mexico. I was much younger, but I didn't love the Mexican food. And maybe that's because my palate has been so used to the Americanized Mexican food. But I thought that was ironic.
Meals outside.
And it was only one time I really got a,
of mealtime. In America, regardless of what hour of the day it is, you can be reasonably sure of finding some kind of restaurant open. Even at 2 a.m. you can find a Denny's or something. Most restaurants, outside of really fancy places, don't close down between meal times, so you can go in at any time during operating hours to get food. Compare that to places where all the restaurants are only open during mealtime hours, and you're out of fucking luck if you get hungry at 10 in the morning.
I could be wrong, let me know. I think there are a lot more like places where you go get food in Europe. A lot more of them aren't these giant chain restaurants who have these huge margins and they can afford to be open for 24 hours or for 12 hours, 18 hours. But in Europe, I think a lot of the great food you get is from individual restaurants and businesses who don't have that luxury of giant chains of just being able to open whenever. And of course, there could also be cultural reasons.
Disclaimer. The last time I left the USA was in the 90s and things may be different now.
Fair.
But that is what frustrated me about my trip. As a not giving an F about time, I'm on vacation kinda guy. I loved this when visiting the US. Paying for public restrooms. Honestly, I wonder how the elderly manage being out and about. My grandparents and stepmother pee about every 30 minutes, sometimes more, and it would cost a small fortune while traveling, as most restrooms I saw were at least €2, sometimes €5 to use. I really dislike this as well, and keep finding it hard that you have to pay for this basic necessity.
I really want to know if this one's over-exaggerated, guys. I've been to Europe, and I remember this, but how widespread is this?
However, €2-5. I've never seen that anywhere. Highest I can recall is 70 cents, which is common in highway stations. Perhaps it's been €1 somewhere, but €2 is insanely high, and don't get me started on €5. I'm really curious as to where you encountered this. I am European. Well, I was until a few weeks ago, but that's a different story. But I hate how in some countries such as Spain, Turkey and Greece, the sewage systems can't handle toilet paper, so you're expected to put it in a bin beside the toilet. I remember being at a water park in Corfu and the bin was overflowing with used toilet paper. Nasty stuff.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's gross. France is an amazing place that is in a shocking state of disrepair. The stoplight under the Louvre is loomed with brown duct tape. Every building needs to be power washed and the highways have weeds growing on them. The entire place could use new curb and gutter. Power washing buildings that old can actually be damaging sometimes. Granted, it's usually the best method of restoration for pollution on old buildings, but it's sometimes best to leave them as they are.
That's an interesting one to me because that's one of the things I remember were beautiful with places like France and Germany, and Belgium and the Netherlands, is that I thought all of your highways were beautifully kept, and Paris especially, I think their streets are beautiful. And so that's one that I don't agree with, but maybe you went to different places.
Pollution on old buildings, but it's sometimes best to leave them as they are. Visited Italy, which was absolutely amazing, but the lack of bathrooms and the fact that you had to pay to use them at the main train station in Rome was...
Okay, is there anyone from a European country that's watching this right now, you never know, that doesn't have the paying for the public restroom?
weird. Also, when asking for water at dinner,
like there are a lot of places here where if you want to use a bathroom in a restaurant, you need to be a customer first. Like you have to buy something first. But I remember having to pay, I think it was in Germany, where it was a restroom. It was a building that was just a restroom, and you had to pay for that, which was odd.
poured bottled water, which was not free. Not tipping was nice though. Old people walking slow on the sidewalk. Our old people here in the US are conveniently trapped at home, often with few means of mobility.
Jesus
It's great.
Christ.
We don't let them
Jesus Christ.
all stay trapped. A few of the lucky ones are given scooters to drive into traffic.
Jesus. Okay, it's not funny, but it's funny. No, it's not. It's in a morbid kind of way.
I've only been to Europe once, specifically Germany, Austria,
I've been
and
there, those
Switzerland.
three.
There's a lot that they
Switzerland, most beautiful country I've ever been to. Okay, it's so beautiful, and everywhere is beautiful.
do better, but the one thing I didn't like was that
Everywhere I went, that I drove through, I should say.
Austria and Switzerland. There's a lot that they do better, but the one thing I didn't like was that sparkling water is somewhat standard there, and also that they don't ice their drinks.
I love sparkling water, seltzer, no issue for me.
I can deal with no free refills and the fact that water isn't free, and I was prepared for that, but I hate sparkling water.
I've been drinking it for years now. I guess it kind of had to grow on me at first, but it's kind of a healthy option for me. just because sodas are so sugary. But after I eat a nice meal, I love the carbonation of soda, and the seltzer has that, and so it's a great healthy alternative for me.
I didn't
love
know
seltzer.
I had to ask for no gas at first, and that was an unpleasant surprise. And the fact that water isn't free, and I was prepared for that. If you ask for water, you get bottled water. If you ask for tap water, you'll get free water. Windows without mesh screens to keep the bugs out. The lack of public lands and wilderness areas. The general lack of wildlife. The public holds...
I heard there were no mosquito. Are there mosquitoes in the UK? There has to be. Come on. Someone was lying.
Ownership of 640 million acres of incredible landscapes, and all wildlife is publicly owned, managed in trust by different agencies. I can plant my feet anywhere on that ground and feel completely free. It is as much mine as anyone else's. I've spent a lot of time in Europe, including 2 18-month stints in Budapest and Rotterdam. I love a lot of the culture, the architecture, and history. I fully plan to return to visit. I am unable to live somewhere long-term where I can't take to the wilderness and roam free whenever I want.
Sure, it's more of a thing in Eastern Europe to have more wide open forests, right?
It might be the most beautiful thing about the United States. This isn't an attack on Europeans, or some kind of blame game. This is an incredibly important subject. It deserves a nuanced conversation, not social media's forte.
Yeah, no one should be offended by videos like this. I see videos attacking the United States. I don't get offended. Countries have certain things that are better or worse, and sometimes that's up to opinion. And so no one should, take it to heart.
Encourage you to do your own exploring and research. See what's worked and what hasn't. The truth is we got lucky early on. We had a president and large group of outdoors people who recognized that we were about to effectively eliminate wild places during the westward expansion, and did something about it. They assigned value to these places before it was too late, and managed to enshrine it as a chief American value. European peoples, my ancestors among them, had a lot more time to settle and resettle most of the continent before Western civilization had the luxury to start thinking ahead.
That's a great point, is that Europe is such a... And of course you had people in America, in the Americas before, colonization from Europe. But, I mean, when it comes to the wildlife thing or the lack of a lot of open spaces, European countries are much smaller, and they are full of centuries, if not millennia of history. And so that's not something you can blame on Europe, not having the wildlife and open spaces of a country like America. So that,
Also great European organizations working to increase, restore, and improve what remains in the wilderness realm. It's a totally different experience from the US right now. Somewhere, somehow, Teddy Roosevelt is slapping his knee in delight. Every so often I hear that you'll often have to pay to use public bathrooms. Seems like a recipe for public urination to me.
Yeah,
the freaking toilets in Austria. Instead of your crap going underway where you can't smell it, it falls on a little platform where it's mostly out of the water. This is supposedly so you can look at the color afterwards and check it.
I heard that this is also a thing in Germany where you want to inspect your feces because you eat like a lot of pork and maybe some raw meats and stuff where you could have parasites. And so you want to look if any of that is in your stool, so...
For blood. Freaking seriously. Then, since there's not much water there, when you flush it the crap leaves a nice smear and you have to use...
If I say anything that's bullcrap and incorrect, please call me out.
Since there's not much water there, when you flush it the crap leaves a nice smear and you have to use a scrubber to clean it off before flushing again to clean the scrubber. What the absolute frick? European here. Yes, those are terrible, but usually just found in old buildings. I don't think they make these anymore. As a Brit now living in the US for the last 6.5 years, there are many things I do not miss about home, including an obvious one, but yes, the population density. Just generally feeling overcrowded all the time. Too many people smoking in public and carelessly around young children. Crazy price of gas petrol. Rain year round. I mean, it rains a bit here too, but nowhere near as much. Getting dark at 3:30 PM in winter. Litter everywhere and just general lack of care about surroundings. Gum and spit on pavements is especially disgusting. Lack of variety with ethnic restaurants. I know I am somewhat spoiled for choice in my area, but back home it was Indian, Chinese or Nando's if you didn't want a kebab or fish and chips.
I think all of these things, all of these things, I think can apply to the U.S. just depending where you go. You know, if you go in the Northwest, you're gonna have a lot of rain all the time. If you go super far north, you're gonna have it getting dark really early. You know, prices of gas and petrol are gonna vary. Yeah, so I think, you know, America's a big place, and it's hard to compare that with these generalities, you know?
There's probably more, but that'll do for now. Getting dark at 3:30 p.m. in winter. This is location dependent. It happens in Chicago, since we are just west of a time zone border, similar to the eastern side of England.
Yeah, it gets dark around 4:30, and when you get closer to the winter solstice. Over here, I live in the Northeast in Rhode Island, kind of near Boston, so.
There's a sense of claustrophobia I get in Europe. Everything seems
a
tighter.
constant complaint.
Doorways, streets, alleys, hallways.
The stairs in Amsterdam. Oh my God, how do people not die all the time? The stairs in one of the buildings that we stayed overnight in were like this, okay? And like the width of the stairs were like this. If you, especially if you were drunk, oh my God, you're dead. You're dead. You are going in a coma.
The hotel I stayed at in Rome had a bed that wouldn't have been acceptable for the most budget motel in the US. There's a sense of being taken advantage of.
This is another thing with hotels as well as restaurants, is the United States has a lot of large companies that are in control of hotels and in control of restaurants that are dotted across the country. And so whether you are in Rhode Island or you are 2,000, 3,000 miles away in California, or, you know, 2,000 miles away in Texas, like you are very likely going to find an easy, some restaurant that you're familiar with, or a hotel that is going to be identical as if you stayed at it in New England or Texas or California. That's one of the big themes I'm seeing here, is that Europe seems to have a lot more individually owned restaurants, pubs, restaurants, and not hospitals. Jesus Christ. What is the hotels? Did I say that already?
At restaurants with nickel and diming. Bread, there's a charge. Butter with your bread, there's a charge. The US has plenty of issues, but I like the wide open spaces. Rome, liked Pane Salami restaurant. Spent 2 hours and 20 euros on a bottle of wine and a giant charcuterie board. Favorite restaurant in Europe. Dislike the bed at the hotel. Venice, liked the unlimited Prosecco the hotel provided on their rooftop balcony overlooking the city. Disliked the food. Worst pizza I've ever had. Ireland, liked the wittiness of the Irish and watching the girls there shoot my buddy down in funny ways. Disliked some drunk screaming at the top of his lungs for half an hour at 5 a.m. outside the hotel.
Yeah, there are things I like, there are things I dislike. That applies to every country.
Window in Dublin. Barcelona, liked affordable, beautiful, Jaman, Estrella, beaches, the metro. Dislike can't think of anything. Switzerland, liked the trains being plentiful and on schedule. The mountains.
Well, the people in Barcelona seem to dislike you, the tourists, a lot lately.
The affordable skiing. Dislike getting charged $2.
Switzerland affordable skiing. Interesting.
For tap water in Zurich at a restaurant. France liked the amount of care and seriousness the French put into what they make, from macaroons to croissants. The history seeing the old city wall of Paris in an underground parking garage. Like that kind of history is just normal in everyday life. Raclette after a day of skiing is amazing. Disliked the Senegal.
This is one of the biggest things I'm so jealous of Europe, is that if I want to go see some really cool historical site, I'll have to travel quite a bit, and it'll be about, you know, like the Civil War, the American Revolution. You guys will walk by something that is a historical monument that has existed for like 1,000 years. So cool. It's something I'm very jealous of.
These beggars, and the feeling that most French were all annoyed that I exist.
The Senegalese beggars. That is oddly specific. was about to say Pacific. And I don't think there are a shortness of homeless people in the U.S. We're all annoyed that I existed. Sometimes I wonder if how much of these are genuine, right? And how much of these are like preconceived notions of a country that you're just going to notice more because you're looking for them, you know?
Listed. Lisbon, nothing noteworthy either way. Graz, Austria, liked Gorsa beer. Can't find it in the US. Prague, cheap beer. Beautiful city at
Would love to
night.
go to Czechia.
Didn't like an Uber guy trying to scam me by driving me 45 minutes through the countryside for a 15-minute ride to the airport. Didn't like that only 2 types of beer are available, light or dark. Munich, good food I guess. Disliked the conditions of the hotel and Germans have weird toilets. The poop just drops onto a little shelf. Putin instead of Poutine. No American
Was that a Canadian?
shelf. Putin instead of Poutine.
So is he saying there's a pronunciation difference, or is he saying you have Vladimir Putin instead of poutine, French fries, and gravy and curds? Kind of funny.
No American lemonade. Apparently some restaurants will just serve you something similar to Sprite if you request lemon.
There's no American lemonade out in Europe? Oh my God, call me. Whoa. Whoa, no way.
Made in some countries in Europe. Drinks not having ice in them. Cold drinks.
The worst types of tourist stories I hear, the most frustrating ones, are the ones where people from America go to Europe and are upset when something is not exactly like it is in America, as if you're not going to a different frickin' country.
Where it's at. Never been, but I watch an unhealthy amount of traveling shows and sometimes I'm shocked at how small the kitchens are. Also, the driving seems scary in some places.
Austria. Scary. Beautiful roads, but steep. Death awaits you if you mess up.
I live in the UK and was absolutely terrified by Italian driving in Rome. They have lines for lanes but no one uses them. At the traffic lights it is like a crowd when everyone is trying to push to the front, but with cars. My wife and I were starving and went to a Burger King in Italy. Everything was just like any other Burger King except when we sat down and took out all our food we could not find the ketchup. So I looked all over for the ketchup near the soda machine but no go. Finally I had to break down and bother the order taker for some. Turns out you have to pay for ketchup packs. The server saw the shock on my face and actually apologized.
Well, this wrecks my other view that the fact that they aren't chain restaurants means that they can't afford to have stuff like this, but this is a Burger King. And you still have to pay for the ketchup packs. That's interesting.
Needlessly, as it wasn't her fault. Other than that, I loved everything about Italy. I spent 2 weeks in Italy. My wife and I ate out every single night and we sampled all the great foods Italy has to offer. We literally ate our way through Milan, Monza, and Lake Como. You also pay for ketchup packs here in Switzerland, and there are no free soda refills. You have been visited by the romantic doggo. Comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone.
No, I love these things. It was a nice, refreshing swap of the usually like I'll watch Europe. What's the things that you didn't like or like about America? So it was a cool switcheroo. Would appreciate any comments down below, guys. Were any of these things true or false? Especially if they're false, I'd love to hear it. If you have any similar experiences, any comments at all, would love to see it. And hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.